Going on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of Outside the Arena with Rob and Griff. I'm Griff Syndergaard, joined by my co-host Rob Goldberger, and we're back, and it has been an absolutely crazy week in sports. We obviously had the MLB trade deadline. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. We also saw the first NFL preseason game, the Hall of Fame game between the Jaguars and the Raiders. Not too much action there, although Josh Jacobs did get a few snaps. We saw Trayvon Walker get a sack, so there was some action, not the most, but the NFL keeps chugging away. There's some storylines here and there, but the story of the day is the MLB and the trade deadline specifically. Obviously, it happened this past Tuesday, August 2nd. So some of this news is a little, it's been in the news for a little bit, but we're going to start off obviously with the biggest trade, arguably in the history of the sport, which is the Juan Soto trade. Juan Soto and Josh Bell sent to San Diego for package, including Mackenzie Gore, C.J. Abrams, Robert Hassel, James Wood, Harleen Susana, and Luke Voigt. That's a heck of a lot of young talent, as good of a package as we've ever seen, and it still feels like not enough, which is kind of crazy. Your thoughts on this deal? Obviously, the Padres, this deadline, also went out, acquired Josh Hader, and acquired Brandon Drury. So one of the greatest deadlines, I think, in the history of the sport for, an individual team. What an absolute trade for them. And this puts them right up there in the National League in terms of contention.
Yeah, they're right there right now, obviously. I think, getting Soto and Bell was just insane. But like you said, despite the amount of young talent they traded, obviously, I think Mackenzie Gore is like the absolute headline. Like, if this trade is going to absolutely work out, Mackenzie Gore is going to have to become a shutdown ace, to be honest, one of the best in the sport to even look like it's fair value. And, obviously Hassel and Abrams will have to pin on as well. And those three guys were obviously, the most well-known, I guess, prospects dealt with the trade. But I just think it's like you said, you mentioned that it's not enough even for like a 23-year-old Juan Soto. And, I saw Jeff Passan talking about ESPN, and he said, it's crazy because despite the amount of players, you just feel like there's so much more talent coming San Diego's way. Like, it's just unbelievable to me that they have 23-year-old Ted Williams, and they just traded. Like, I'm still in disbelief that a deal got done over the deadline. Obviously, Griff and I both thought over the past couple of weeks that, this was at least going to have to wait until the offseason if a trade was going to happen, and it didn't. And like you said, I just don't think for the Padres, like you said, you were talking about AJ Preller a lot last week on this podcast, and boy, did he backed you up there, man. Hader, and that haul for Hader was really nothing. For one of the best.
Yeah, they DFA'd one of the guys too.
Yeah, who's a Rocky now already, but it's just like, it's I good for AJ Preller, good for the San Diego Padres. And I do want to say, like, it's, you saw a lot of executives come out and say, I don't know if you've read any pieces in The Athletic or ESPN, but they've sort of said, how are the Padres doing this? Or why do the Padres, when they keep this mono-sustainability? Like, I just don't, like, because they're putting fans in the seats. Like, people want to see this baseball team play. It's sort of like the opposite of the Washington Nationals in a sense, but I'm just in disbelief that the 23-year-old, I understand the package he was traded for, but this is Juan Soto we're talking about. And the secondary piece of the trade, Josh Bell, obviously is having an unbelievable this year. He's been one of the best, I guess, left-handed hitters in the entire National League, but it's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, this is as crazy as a trade as we'll ever see. I was quickly tallying, if you saw our video last week, we predicted the trade deadline, and it was a pretty bad prediction. The only team we correctly predicted a player to was Frankie Montas, the Yankees. Other than that, I think you beat me by one because you said Garrett Cooper would not be traded. But other than that, we both got four combined, four each, and then you got five. So not our best showing, but regardless, yeah, this trade was it was crazy. And like you said, I was surprised it got done. It seemed like, I guess this team was clearly the Nats were clearly motivated to get it done. And they got a haul, and you would imagine that one of these players would pan out to be some sort of all-star. They acquired, 5 guys who were all considered top prospects at one time, if not currently. So you would think that one of these guys becomes an all-star, if not better. And you kind of need. I mean, this is the Washington Nationals' future is essentially tied to some of the guys they've drafted, and then the two deadlines from the last 2 years: Keibert Ruiz, Josiah Gray from last year, and then this package. I mean, this is the future of the Washington Nationals right here. Obviously, it looks like they'll probably have the number 1 overall pick this year, but it's just crazy, like you said. I mean, a player of Juan Soto's stature at his age being traded. I
Three
mean,
pairs they get him for 3.
it's absolutely crazy, especially pairing him with Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado. And then on top of it, for this year, you've got Josh Bell, Brandon Drury. It's just pure insanity, to be honest. It's crazy to see a team like this. Will they be able to compete with the Dodgers? Will they be able to compete with the Mets? I mean, their lineup is as good as any lineup in the major leagues at this point. Their pitching is, I guess, the one question mark. But now you got to, Josh Hader's had his struggles, but at the beginning of the year, he was widely considered as the best closer in baseball. So, you got one of the best closers out there. It's going to be a heck of a year for the Padres, and a heck of a few years. They got Juan Soto. I don't think that Juan Soto will be a Padre long term. I'd be shocked if the Padres coughed up $500 million for this guy, especially with Machado and Tatis on the books. But regardless, this is a great move by them. You've got what a core they have, and I mean, for the Nats, it's just a sad time to be a Nats fan. This team is not going to be good for God no. I mean, 3-4 years. I mean, they're going to be in a long rebuild.
Buddy. You're lowballing that.
I mean, 4 years. I feel like maybe
it's just. It just must suck. Like, I understand they got a World Series and that's all that matters, and this is the trade-off for it. But
I know it. People say that it's fine if it's a World Series, but like
at a point you had Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and Juan Soto on the same team, and at that point, before obviously his career fell off a cliff, Anthony Rendon was right in the conversation with those guys.
I watched something on MLB Network the other day, and I forget who said it, but I was just like, I think it was maybe John Morosi. I could be totally wrong. And he was like saying how the Angels, when healthy, have 3 of the top 10 players in the sport. And I was like, what year are we living in?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is a colossal rebuild, and it sucks from the Nats fans because, yeah, you got that World Series, you had that joy, but at the same time, it's like that happened a few years ago. It's like you don't want to be terrible. Like as much as I hate teams like the New York Yankees, they're always good. They're always in the playoff race. Like that's what you want. You want a team who, yeah, they get that World Series, and if they have a few years where, hey, maybe they make the playoffs, but they don't win it, you can say, hey, we got that World Series.
Yeah.
To go on a total rebuild like this, though, is just like, it's just painful and just not what you want as a fan at all. So yeah, they got that World Series. I think people are probably still, happy they got that, but at the same time, it's like, it's just, it doesn't solve all the current issues, and
like
it sucks for
like giving Patrick Corbin the 6-year contract.
I mean, look, that they got their World Series for that. And I mean, look, I don't even think yeah, he sucks. I mean, it's one of the worst contract probably in the major leagues, but they'll pay that off. And by the time he's gone, they're not going to be probably good still. So it really doesn't even affect them too much.
No, you're right. I think that's maybe just my fresh mind from last night after Patrick Corbin delivered the worst outing in the major league year so far. But yeah.
Yeah, he is terrible. This Nationals team is terrible. I mean, you got to feel for a guy like Luke Voigt. I mean, this guy.
Yeah. Poor guy.
The whole Eric Hosmer thing. I mean, good for Eric Hosmer. Like
for sure.
Like good for him not saying like, I'm not going to this team and just being bad for, now he's in the Red Sox who, they're not great this year, but at least they're, that's a fun team to be on. They're always kind of competitive, and that's a fun roster and fun group of guys. The Nats is just like Luke Voigt is just going to, this dude in the COVID season was like everything. Like you couldn't stop hearing about him. He was like this hot new guy. And now it's like, this guy's career is just in the gutter at this point.
Can you believe that Eric Hosmer, I must have just slipped my mind that he's on an 8-144 deal? It's just ridiculous to me.
Like, I mean, that contract's crazy. Yeah.
It's a gross good for, like you said, good for Eric Hosmer though.
Good for him. Yeah. Standing up. I mean, you can't blame the guy, man. Like he knew what going to Washington would do to him. And that's just not where you want to be right now. But What a trade. I'm sure we'll be looking back on this for years to come, and good for the Padres, but they got to get a World Series out of this for sure.
Yeah, I mean the NL. And Griff and I were talking about it before the podcast. I mean the NL is just so ridiculously strong. It really is. I mean, so much stronger than the AL this year. You got Griff and I were actually just analyzing the standings. The Phillies would be the top would have the third best record in the AL, and then they're hanging on to that last wild card spot in the NL, and it's just so much strength. The NL West and the top of the NL East and the top of the NL West are so strong. They really are.
Very, very strong. I mean, the Central, you got the Cardinals, the Brewers seem bad, but a lot more. It's going to be a hard run for some of these teams in the NL. That's for sure. It seems like the AL. I mean, it feels like Yankees, Astros, ALCS is pretty much set in stone almost at this point. Maybe the Blue Jays get hot. I mean, a team like that could get hot offensively. You have to kind of look at that and say, yeah, maybe offensively they could get hot, but outside of that, like none of these teams, I think, would be able to even get hot and play well enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Astros, in my opinion. Sorry, we're going off a little. I'm digressing a little bit here, but the Astros to me just look unbelievable right now.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. All right, we'll move on to another trade. Your Philadelphia Phillies. They had an interesting trade deadline. Noah Syndergaard. They got Brandon Marsh, and they got David Robertson. Your thoughts on their team so far, Rob? Or their deadline, I should say.
I was a little upset with the Ahapi trade at first because, he is the best hitting prospect in our system. But I understand it because he is organizationally blocked, obviously, with, JT still playing at an elite level. And, he's going to be here for a few more years due to that contract. Hobby's getting up there in age, I guess, for a prospect. But you have Rafael Marsh. And so I guess I understand it. And Brandon Marsh, I mean, he is a huge upgrade over what they've had in center field defensively. And obviously, this is a guy who is a former top 50 prospect. He really hasn't been able to figure out in Los Angeles. But then again, outside of Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, not a lot of guys can, out there in Anaheim. So I'm just hopeful that the Phillies see something they can fix his swing. But I really am excited about it from a defensive center fielder point of view, because obviously, I mean, as a Mets fan, we've had our fair share of issues. Obviously, Matt Vierling has been a lot better than the likes of Odubel Herrera. And yeah, I mean, I just think I like that. And then I really loved they did have to pay another hefty price for David Robertson, but I loved this trade because look, the guy's a former Philly. He really struggled when he was here. Former
Philly. It
Philly.
Feels like he wasn't even a Philly.
But he was so hurt. He was so hurt.
I know.
Yeah. And I don't know, he's been great this year. I get he doesn't have plus velo, but to me, like, our pen is just, it's the most depth we've had, obviously, I think, in the Bryce Harper era and, like, obviously the playoff drought era in general, I believe. I mean, you have Robertson. You laughed at me about Sir Anthony Dominguez before the year, but he has been one of the NL's best relievers, Griffin.
He's been solid.
Yeah. And then obviously Corey Knebel wasn't good last night, so this is a bad time for me to be saying this, but he's been rounding into form. And obviously you have a guy like Brad Hand back there, but I just think I like the move for depth. And like for Syndergaard, I'm not so sure about Syndergaard, but they really didn't they really essentially gave up nothing for this guy. So I'm not really too worried about it if it doesn't work out. He's obviously a rental, and you guys, we have 4 pitchers I think that are better than Noah Syndergaard, but I think they just needed a solidified fifth guy at the end of this rotation. Like you said, 11 hits against the Nats, or like I said, 11 hits against the Nats in his first outing. Wasn't great, but look, he was getting used to it. He had just been traded 2 days before. He'll be fine, Griff. He'll be fine, and he'll be coming back to haunt the Mets.
I don't know about that. I think
next week. In one of these 6 games next week.
I hope he pitches next week. I really do, against the New York Mets. I think that would be, I mean, he kind of ducked them when we played them in Los Angeles. He was supposed to pitch and then was like, yeah, I'm going to take an extra day instead and I'll pitch after. I mean, he had some great moments with the Mets, but it's clear that after Tommy John, this guy's not even a shell of himself at this point. I mean, he's really, it's going to be, I'm very curious to see his contract in the offseason, who signs him and for how much. I mean, the pitching market is very interesting. So, maybe a team gives him 10 plus million, but at this point, it just seems like the guy doesn't really he's lost his strikeout stuff. I mean, yeah, like you said, he's a fine number 5, but, Noah Syndergaard, you hear the name and, you think of this guy's dominant years. It's kind of, crazy to see how, the mighty have fallen. But yeah, I think the Phillies had a good deadline. David Robertson was a guy I really wanted for the Mets. So I was very upset to see that, the Phillies ended up with him. He was definitely, probably the guy I was hoping for the most. They were connected with him. So I was a little sad to see the Phillies get him. Brandon Marsh, like you said, I mean, this guy's not going to really do much offensively, but defensively, he's a great player, and that's what the Phillies need in that, defensive outfield for the ages. And Syndergaard, like you said, I mean, number 5, he's, this guy, I hope really wouldn't be, if the Phillies go in the playoffs, wouldn't be in a position to really start a playoff game at this point in his career, but, he's better than kind of what they had in depth at this point. Starting pitching depth is so essential. I mean, that's what I learned with the New York Mets this year is obviously, some of the names the Mets have aren't maybe the most flashy, but guys like David Peterson, Trevor Williams, I mean, these guys did an outstanding job stepping up for the Mets and really has allowed them to be in the position they are today where DeGrom's back, Scherzer's back, and they're rolling. Like, starting pitching depth is everything in the major leagues, and you can never have enough starting pitching. So, good move by the Phillies. I think they had a good deadline. The NL East, I mean, it was a pretty quiet deadline overall, though, in the NL East. Like, I think a lot of people expect the Mets to make a splash, and including myself, I was hoping for it, but
You got Darren Ruff.
I mean, the Daniel Vogelbach has been as good as any addition out there.
He's been unbelievable, dude. He really has.
And I honestly think that, look, I wish they got another reliever. I think I was very hopeful for a big bat. I'm happy with what they did at DH. I think that the upgrade, with the platoon of Vogelbach and Ruff over JD Davis and Dom Smith is, I mean, insane. And Tyler Naquin's been very good already too. I know he's not going to play these guys probably won't play at this level, especially a guy like Tyler Naquin, but it's been good to see them start hot and fit in. And yeah, I mean, the Mets, they did what they had to. They probably could have gotten more. We'll see how that bullpen does come October, but look, they want to build. You hear Steve Cohen, you hear the front office say they want to build up that farm system. They want to be the East Coast Dodgers, and they really believe that. They stayed right on that thought. They kept all their top guys. So after having 2 first-round picks, having a deep farm system, something the Mets haven't really had in a while, they're committing to it. They've got a good team. So a lot, I can't really complain too much. Obviously, I wish, Wilson Contreras, I still wish was a Met, but, the Chicago Cubs, I mean, we can talk about that real quick. I mean, it seems like every year there's a team that just, and I understand that, some of these guys are tough to trade, but I mean, there's no hope for an extension. It's like, what are you doing at this point? It's just mind blowing.
I mean, yeah, I was I was shocked that neither nor Contreras was traded. I mean, obviously you saw that hug. I mean, everybody on the planet expected both of these guys to be gone. I thought, I like you said, I'm just shocked because Contreras will be out of there at the end of the year. I mean, maybe they just thought the value for both of these guys, it was easier. Just they weren't seeing the value they were getting, and they just decided to keep them. I get that's the only reason. Like, they're 20 games below 500. I mean, if they might have thought it just been a better send off. I'm not sure because their demands clearly just weren't being met. It's not like they're not, like you said, these guys. Contreras is gone at the end of the day. He's like 32 years old. They're not going to be competing with Contreras. And I mean, I understand it's what 27. So I don't get it. But
the Cubs are a weird team because you look at, I mean, they just tore it all down, but then they go out. I mean, they're so in the spotlight because of the history of Wrigley Field and their club's history. They're not like a big market team, but they're like, they always try and be good. So they made these signings, the Marcus Stromans, the Seiya Suzuki. So they still have all these guys, which is like, it makes me think they're going to be in a spot where they're just in like an endless rebuild where it's like, this is what I think, like, if you're going to tear it down and just commit to the rebuild. And I understand you want to put good product on the field and be able to win some games for your fans. I understand that. I'm not going to get mad at that, but what the Cubs are doing right now, it doesn't make sense. I mean, my favorite move the whole deadline was the Daniel Bard 2-year extension from the Colorado Rockies. Yeah. A 37-year-old reliever gets basically $10 million a year. Good for Daniel Bard because who knows what would happen on the open market. In his career, he's been all over the place. So for him to go out and say, I'm going to get my $19 million, great move for him. I mean, absolutely amazing job. Very
secure.
happy for Daniel. But in terms of Colorado Rockies, I mean, this is just, it's got to be one of the dumbest moves. I mean, not trading Trevor Story, you had that. You trade Arenado, pay the Cardinals to trade for Arenado, and then sign Chris Bryant, who's been a disaster. And now you've got a 37-year-old relief pitcher. Their team is not good. You're not going to seriously compete.
Yeah, they're planning on competing. I mean, they're clearly planning on competing.
Well, how are they going to compete? They don't have any top prospects. I mean, I don't get it, Rob. I don't get it.
You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know. I mean, I think the night that the Nolan Arenado story broke is honestly one of the funniest nights I've seen as a baseball fan, when it came out that it was actually, like you said, the Rockies paying him to go to another team or paying the Cardinals to take it. It was unbelievable. But I don't understand. I don't understand.
They paid him like it's like a Patrick Corbin type contract.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly.
Like you have to take it on. It's like Nolan Arenado is an MVP caliber player.
He's an MVP player. He is. He could.
I mean, I guess in these mega deals, like we saw that happen with the Giancarlo Stanton, Yankees deal. But I mean, these poor teams, it's just like, what are you doing? Like they'll literally pay money to get saved like $100 million. It's crazy.
It's so different though, because Nolan Arenado is going to walk into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, like you said, it just seems like so many of these teams have their feet in two buckets almost. It's just like I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's. I don't know whether it's healthy or unhealthy for the sport, because obviously Griff and I have talked about a lot about these teams that just aren't even going to ever even make an effort to compete, despite even have like these stacked prospects. We'll always just say, yeah, they'll just trade them away whenever they want a contract. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, the Rockies want to compete next year. I mean, that's sort of what all the reporters have been saying. I'm not sure how, but I mean, given that contract,
they're in the division with two of the best teams in the sport.
Yeah,
they've got. I mean, not even a nutshell of the talent. They who's Chris Bryant? Like Chris Bryant hasn't even seen the field this year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think his season has kind of been chalked, I think, ever since. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the New York Yankees, because their season has been very interesting as of late. I mean, I've heard a lot of stupid excuses from these Yankee fans. I've heard they're not trying. They have such a big lead in the division. They stopped trying. I've heard it all, man. I've heard that, that series against the Mets, they didn't care. That's the Mets World Series. So Mets are, it was the Mets World Series against the Braves. It's the Mets World Series against the Yankees. Mets have 5 World Series right now. I mean, this might be the greatest, most storied season in sports history. 5 World Series in one season. I've never seen anything like it, bro.
Wow.
But yeah, they went out at the trade deadline. We kind of talked about Benintendi, who's been not good so far, but I'm sure he'll turn it around. He's a good player. Frankie Montas, they go out and acquire. They didn't really give ultimately too much to get him. I mean, they did give some top prospects, but not any of the big names that were being thrown around per se. They acquired Scott Efros from the Cubs. And then that Jordan Montgomery trade might have been the weirdest trade I've ever seen.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Yankees trade deadline and where they currently stand as a ball club?
I mean, I think they had a fine trade deadline. Obviously. They missed out on who they really wanted to, and that was Luis Castillo. And I kind of think after that, everything from as Yankees fans are, as their spoiled selves are. I mean, they I think a lot of Yankees fans obviously are unhappy, but I think Frankie Montas is still a great addition for them. But like you said, I think the weirdest trade, I mean, it made sense for both teams because they needed a guy who could cover ground out there in the outfield. But Montgomery, I don't like you. Pitching depth is just so important.
Especially. No, go ahead. I'll go on my little.
He's such a quality pitcher. But look, I think the Yankees. I've been saying the same thing about the Yankees all year long. And obviously, I think now that they're not on pace for the best record in the history of the sport, it's a little easier.
Oh my God, that collapsed quick.
So, I just think the AL is a 2-horse race, and the AL is so bad. The AL Central is completely chalked. no team is beating the Yankees or the Astros in a 5 or 7 game series ever. But I just think that they're not even. I understand the records are similar. I understand blah blah blah, but like I just don't think that the Yankees are even close to where the Astros are right now. And obviously, that's been their goal for 7 years at this point, trying to catch the Astros. So, I just don't know if they're on that Houston level.
Yeah, I mean the Houston Astros. There's going to be a lot like documentaries in like 25 years or 15, 20 years made on this team because
Of course,
I mean this is one of the greatest dynasties that the sport has seen, and the whole cheating thing makes it even more interesting.
we should.
The fact that they only have one World Series to show for it's pretty incredible, though.
Well, they really should. They choked against the Nets and never mind, man.
They should have won both. They should have had
both
of
those series.
Especially that 2019 one. I mean, that rotation: Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke.
Oh my God! And Justin Verlander, by the way. Sorry, let me give a quick shout out to Justin Verlander, who is an ERA under 2 in his age 39 season. Perhaps one of his finest season at 30. That guy is an animal, man. And I understand McClanahan is great, but he's right there for that AL Cy Young, Justin Verlander.
No, I think he's McClanahan has been bad these last few starts. I think Verlander, even Dylan Cease has been. Dylan
Cease is a freaking monster, man. And I wanted to predict Cy Young too. That was the worst part at the time. I think about it often, Griffin, on this podcast.
Who did we go for like Garrett Cole or some stupid
probably,
stuff?
But I wanted to.
I'll never predict him for the Cy Young. He is not. He's at like a 3.5 ERA. It's just like
I think
But yes, the Houston Astros are, I mean, just one of the best teams out there, and like one of the greatest dynasties. I mean, you can't say that the sport has seen.
They need another World Series.
Yeah, but like pure stretch of like dominance in one conference, like this is impressive. And every year it's like, oh, they lose Springer, they lose Correa. It's like, how do they do it? And then it's just they get better and better because they have all these guys. And
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, the New York Yankees, like I know I'm a Yankees hater. They had a fantastic deadline. Like they did a good job. Frankie Montas, like he's a solid pitcher. That's a great guy to plug in. Andrew Benintendi, I know he struggled, but he should be good. It's another good bat. Scott Efros, like you just look at the stats, you just look at the guy, you're like, the Yankees are going to make this guy like the next great reliever.
They're going to make him absolutely unhittable, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah. So like, that guy's going to be like the next thing out there next year. So look, they had a great deadline. The Jordan Montgomery move, I think, is the move that I just purely don't understand. And I think was where they messed up. And I think maybe they made it because they thought they would get Pablo Lopez, and in which case, bad mismanagement, I guess you could say. But
yeah,
you look at the rotation right now. They've got Domingo Germán starting games because Luis Severino was placed on the 60-day IL. There's like whole dispute. It seems like he's like pissed off at the team too because he's like, I'm totally fine, and I just got put on the 60-day IL. So it's very confusing. But you look at their team right now, it's like if one guy gets hurt in that rotation, they are screwed right now because they've got obviously Cole, Nestor, Tyone, Frankie Montas, and then I think it's Domingo Germán right now because Severino's hurt. I think that's that's all they got. It's like they're a team that's supposed to be this World Series favorite, but you get like, let's say, God forbid, Nestor Cortez gets hurt. All of a sudden, Domingo Germán right now is your 4. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand it. Obviously, Harrison Bader's an elite defender, a good player, New York boy. So, like, he's going to be – the fans will love him. He's going to be great, especially when we've got – Aaron Hicks should be DFA'd. I mean, that guy is just a disgrace.
33. For his last 33.
I mean, I get frustrated when I'm slumping, but like, dude, like you're a big league. Like, I don't think I've ever even had an over 33 slump. Like, and I get he's in the big league, so like it's not a real comparison. But
a lot of Yankees fans are also not happy about this. Like, he is protected by the manager, dude. I mean, Aaron.
It's very odd how this guy is just like that contract is terrible, but like, I mean, 7 years for Aaron Hicks was like, what are you doing? But like who? No one wants him, obviously, unless you pay the salary. But it's just like this guy can't be on the playoff roster. He just can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Montgomery move was weird. But like you said, I think that. And look, Yankee hater and me. Last 43 games, they're a game below 500. Like they got off to this crazy start. and they've fallen back down to earth like severely. Like this team is. Everyone was playing at this astronomical level, and Judge still is. Judge is, I think, in a different tier from everyone else, but everyone else is kind of falling back to reality, and we'll see. That's the thing about the Yankees with Judge is like, I do believe the Astros are better. I do believe that they've got to be the AL favorite by a decent margin. But if Aaron Judge gets hot, like this Yankee team can win the World Series with ease.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Aaron Judge.
And look, they're obviously a good team, no doubt. But like this team will go as Aaron Judge goes, I think is what I would say. When this guy is hot, like this team is tough to beat. But we saw that Mets series against Max Scherzer. He struck out 3 times. Like when the tough gets going, what's going to happen with Aaron Judge? Is he going to show up and be the hero? Because look, Aaron Judge is an incredible player, top 5 player in the sport. He's going to get paid like it this offseason. He hasn't had that big moment, I feel, in his career yet, where you can be like, this is, you look at some of these guys in the sport. One of the most prominent to me is Jose Altuve's walk-off home run against Hammond. Like all these, like when you're like on that level for so long, and you're not like Mike Trout because you're stuck in like you're stuck in Los Angeles. Like everyone kind of has that big moment, and I'm still waiting for Judge's big moment. I feel personally, maybe there's one I'm forgetting about. And look, he said this guy is unreal. Like this, I'm not even like Aaron Judge is a freak. Like what he's doing this year is just pure insanity. Like this guy's the MVP, hands down right now. Like he is a superstar in every word of every syllable in the word. He's a superstar.
Yeah.
I want to see what he does in the playoffs, and he very may well rip off 10 home runs during the playoffs. Like this guy's a freak. I want to see if he has the ability to just single-handedly like bring the Yankees and have them beat the Astros. That's their big rivalry for the last like 6 years now. The Houston Astros. They've not been able to beat them since that 2015 wildcard game where Dallas Keuchel pitched. They've not been able to beat the Astros in the playoffs.
Yeah, 7 years. And the Astros have obviously owned them this year too. I mean, it's like I just like,
I hope that playoff series happens. ALCS. I really want it. That sport needs that. The sport. I think Mets Yankees World Series would be incredible. Yankees Astros ALCS is not needed.
The biggest draw would be Dodgers Yankees, unfortunately, though.
I don't know, Rob. I think Mets Yankees. I think a Subway Series World Series would really.
I think everybody has sort of been salivating for a Dodgers Yankees World Series for years. Whatever.
Because you have the histories of the franchise, and But I think in Mets, especially in New York. I mean, I obviously wasn't here
in
for
New York. It would be the city would be shut down for a few weeks if that were to happen. To be honest, but
Yankees Astros like after the cheating scandal. We need that.
Need it. I would imagine. Oh God, Jose Altuve in the Yankee Stadium.
We didn't really we haven't gotten the true. We had the Altuve walk-off was 2019, I guess. So it didn't come out yet. 2020 happened. It was COVID, so they kind of got out of it. 2021, obviously, Yankees lose wild card, and then this year, I want to see that. We haven't seen Yankees Astros playoff series. I want it. I want it bad.
Yeah,
and I think it should happen. It should happen.
I just think I understand that the Blue Jays, like, I just don't even think that there's a third team close to these two is the thing. And I think I think like the tiers in the AL are realistically like the Astros in their own tier, then the Yankees and
I think the only
Blue Jays, Twins.
I think the Blue Jays have a shot at beating a team, especially in like a 5-game series, because their offense has the ability to get so hot that if they do, they can beat any team. Seattle Mariners pitching staff could also seriously be a threat in the playoffs because pitching wins championships. They have shut down Logan Gilbert, Robbie Ray, Luis Castillo, George Kirby. Like they can shut down your offense, and they got a shot for sure. So I would agree. Yankees, Astros are above the rest. If you look at teams that have a shot and have that potential X factor, Blue Jays, Mariners, I think are the only two other teams that would have a shot.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
I mean, these playoffs are going to be.
How about the Orioles, Griff?
What a team, man. I mean, this
What a
team
team.
is just such a
Adley
fun team.
Rutschman, man. What a player.
I saw some a post on the Barstool podcast, starting nine
Yeah, I think
Twitter
I saw the
account.
same one. Yeah.
I mean, this guy's already a top five catcher in
Top
baseball,
five
hands
pitching
down.
base for
I
sure.
mean, who really is like the catcher position is so bad, but like top five, like I guess JT, even though he's had a bad year, is probably still up there. Contreras, I guess you could put up there.
As much as I was slandering JT, dude, he has really been like unbelievable the past 2 months. He's hot right now. Like,
Yeah.
and obviously the value he brings on the defensive side of the ball.
Dude, catcher is just one like that's why like Francisco Alvarez, man, like I'm just salivating. Like this dude, like even if he's bad defensively, offensively, I feel like he's basically gonna come up. And if his power and offense translates how it should, like this guy will be hands down the best offensive catcher in the sport, like right away.
Let's see. Let's see, Griff.
Have you been seeing the home runs?
No, I
he's
know.
hitting?
I have been.
I mean, guys aren't doing this, man. I just haven't seen this.
Don't count your eggs before they hatch. That's all I'm saying.
Well, look, I mean, the Mets' last, I guess, real top prospect was like Ahmed Rosario, but like, there's a big difference between what Ahmed Rosario and
God, that Ahmed debut was so anticipated, too. I remember that.
It was. He was supposed to be the next big Mets shortstop since Jose Reyes, and that him and Dom Smith were just total. I mean, Ahmed's been fine with Cleveland. He's hitting like 290 right now, so he's playing well. But Lindor is, oh my God, Lindor has been huge this year. He's back. Lindor's top three shortstop.
I'm a big Lindor guy. I'm a big Lindor.
No, I know. Your mom is too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I mean, I feel like we kind of covered most from the deadline. I mean, NFL wise, obviously, I guess we're around a month now from. Yeah. Is it exactly a month from when the season starts, or or like a month and a week or something like that?
Let's check it out right now. Why don't we?
I think it starts like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, a day from tomorrow. A day from tomorrow. Or wow. A month from tomorrow, I should say. A month from tomorrow.
No, I think it's right, because Thursday night football's on the Rams. Yeah.
Bills Rams kicks the season off. That's excellent. That's an excellent game.
Yeah. I mean, the NFL, it does reign king. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, obviously news broke this morning, Kareem Hunt has requested a trade, which I'm sorry, but I'm getting sick of this trade requesting stuff. Like a player like Kareem Hunt, like, sure, you're good. Was very injured last year. You're the second running back on the Browns. You're making $6 million this year. Like, dude, like, please stop. Don't request a trade, dude. Like, you have 1 year.
This might end with him being cut, though. You don't think?
No, I think he's
like.
I think he'll play. But I mean, look, the Browns have Dearness Johnson, so it's like whatever. I mean, it's not whatever because Kareem Hunt is a fantastic player. They need him, but like,
he's also like a second. He's also a running back at a certain point. Like, he's also like the second running back on the Browns team. But that's getting Deshaun Watson back in week 7 or 8. I'm not really sure.
Well, we'll see how this appeal goes.
We'll see how this goes.
So what happens is will they decide it for sure by the NFL season, the outcome of the appeal, or like is there a chance he could play week 1 because it's like ongoing?
No, I'm actually not sure. If I had to be, I'm not going to, because I
feel like I haven't seen anything saying he could play week 1, so I would assume that it's going to be resolved by week 1. But it's very confusing. I mean, this whole thing is crazy.
Yeah.
And, obviously lawsuits potentially might be on the way from the NFLPA. So, I mean, we'll talk about them whenever we get, I guess, a ruling, really. It's tough to really talk about it until then. I mean, is there anything else in the NFL world or sports world, really?
I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously,
Matt Stafford seems like he might have an elbow issue. That seems a little concerning.
Sean McVay has been very quiet about it. He hasn't really spoken about it too much.
The one thing I saw is that it's abnormal for a quarterback, and I was that's
not a bad. And I guess another one is Odell Beckham still unsigned.
Yeah, I think he'll just kind of ride it out until he's probably healthy and hop on.
Like I've said this before, but OBJ I thought was so good last year. Like
he was great. He was great for the Rams.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, and he was one of their biggest contributors in the Super Bowl, despite going out a little early.
Without him, they probably don't win that game. To be honest.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about him signing this new. I think it's probably him. to be honest, just choosing to wait this out a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, I think I'd love to see him on the Rams, but the Rams right now, I mean, they signed Allen Robinson. I think Allen Robinson is going to be great on the Rams. I think he's one guy. I'm definitely looking at him in fantasy and kind of, this Rams, I mean, Sean McVay is just a genius, I think, at the end of the day. And I think Allen Robinson, you hear that they really wanted this guy. I think they're going to have a plan for him. And he's not going to be.
I do have a little bit of a confession to make, Griffin. I don't know if it'll upset you here. I'm just not as big of a Sean McVay fan as everybody else is. I have to be honest with you, okay? And I'll explain to you why. This guy,
I think it's impressive. This guy's, 36? And he's like already won a Super Bowl, made 2 Super Bowls.
He gets more financial backing than any other player in the well, that first made Super Bowl should never have happened. I mean, come on. And I'll explain to you why I have this bitter.
Look, Sean McVay.
It was just because whenever people were talking about best coaches in the league, blah, 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 this is from like 2017, 2018. Sorry, guys. We went off on a little bit of a rant right now, but he would always be compared to like Doug Peterson, and Doug would be looked at like so unfavorably, like, oh, he's not this. Like, Doug isn't even in like Sean McVay's tier. Like, it's just, and I guess it ended up being true, but it just like sucked to see like Sean McVay, who at that point, who had never won a Super Bowl, despite it's just like this guy has so much money behind him. It's
I get that, but at the same time, like, you can't fault the guy for having talent around him.
No,
like
I don't
the way he uses that, and like you can look at like it's the whole Belichick Brady argument. Like, is Bill Belichick the great coach, or is he just had the privilege of coaching Tom Brady for so long?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree. I just think like, man.
Sure, is he probably overhyped a little bit? Absolutely, but I mean, I think you kind of have this whole stem of coaches that kind of came up together. Him, Shanahan. You now have Mike McDaniel as a head coach. There's kind of all these minds that who was the other one? Zach Taylor. Yeah. They kind of all these young guys that all kind of came up, and like you're seeing the success they're having. So they obviously are good head coaches. Sure. Sean McVay, this like unbelievable head coach and like once in a generation. Maybe not, but I think he's a top 5 coach in the league. I think he's a great mind.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, like you said, like when you have Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, like all these names consistently, like, yeah, like you should be doing well.
Yeah, but listen, and look, I like Sean McVay. I just think like there's so much, like whenever there's a broadcast of a Rams game, it's about Sean McVay's age and Sean McVay's smile and this and that, and it's just like Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, look, I think that the Rams are probably the NFC favorites this year, even if Matt Stafford can remain healthy. Obviously, look, the Bucs are in that conversation. Packers are a little bit.
That Bucs offense is. They get Julio Jones. I mean, it's just like.
Let's see how. I'm very interested to see how Julio performs with Tom Brady, because I think he can.
I think he might be good because dude, like it's what happened with AD last year. Like,
yeah, I mean, Chris Godwin's practicing.
You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and then Julio. Like Julio's just not going to have that. Like, sure, you look at Tennessee last year, total disaster. But the guy was still being guarded by arguably probably the ones most games because they had. I forgot. I thought it was Robert Woods for some reason. Yeah, I guess they had AJ Brown. I knew they had. I for some reason blipped and thought Robert Woods.
Yeah, I mean he's already. He's.
But
doesn't even matter.
I think Julio will be good in that offense as the third option kind of guy. It's just if he can stay healthy. I don't think he is what he once was. Obviously, he's probably trending towards washed a little bit, but I don't think last year was indicative of who he can be as a player, especially with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. Like, come on, man, that guy sucks.
I agree.
But all right, I think that will do it for this episode of Outside the Arena. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be sure to ramp up our NFL content, I'm sure. And, as the MLB playoff chase continues, we'll be talking a lot about that. So stay tuned for all the latest content in sports. If you haven't already, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Outside the Arena. Check us out on Instagram at Outside the Arena Podcast. Our Instagrams will be linked in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you all on the next episode of Outside the Arena.